for Nashville starts now with this breaking news alert.
We're following heartbreaking news tonight. Overnight rain quickly turned into catastrophic flooding, and that took a deadly turn. Tonight, we know at least 10 people in Humphreys County have died. 31 are still missing, and the youngest victims, twin babies. So here's everything we know. A curfew went into place in Humphreys County at 8 p.m. Officials there are asking you do not drive unless it is absolutely necessary.
Look at some of these numbers: 9, 10, 15, 17 inches of rain. That is the most that we've seen so far today. And when I come back in a couple of minutes, Carly, we're going to talk about this breaking a state record.
Wow, Stefano, thank you. Just in the last few hours, we got a list of names of those who haven't been found. The Waverly Department of Public Safety needs the public's help finding them. We've put that entire list of names on WSMV.com. So let's go straight out to our Marius Payton, who's live. Marius, just tell us what you're seeing out there right now as that community tries to make sense of this disaster.
Carly, you know, I was trying to think of 3 words to describe what I was seeing as we were pulling in to Waverly a couple of hours ago. Devastation, catastrophic, and hope. Of course, you can see the devastation. We've been seeing the devastation on social media, but we are also seeing Tennesseans helping Tennesseans, and that's where the hope comes in. I want to show you what we're going to. This is the Memorial Clinic. As you can see, the siding of the clinic has been ripped off. We want to take you down here. That is a kind of a gully. And at the bottom of the gully, you see a car. You also see another car turned over. Then there is a red truck there as well. Then you see this car wrapped around a tree. And over here, you see a power line just strewn across the street. Now, we mentioned how in times of need, Tennesseans have always been there for each other. The flooding here in Waverly, once again, proves that. Our Carice Jackman joins us now from McEwen High School. And Carice, how is the community coming together there?
Well, Marius, they're coming together in droves. You know, we've been out here all day, all morning, and we're seeing car after car line up with everything from blankets to water, trying to do everything they can to help out Waverly, which is just 13 miles down the road.
In Waverly, Gilbert Conyers is doing his part, helping with cleanup and supporting his neighbors.
Why sit at home? You help somebody else. Cause one of these days, I probably need help. Like I said, I probably need help one of these days.
Saturday's deadly flood in Humphreys County lifted pavement off the ground. The power of the water moving this storage shed to a nearby creek.
And just to show you the true devastation of this flood, look behind us here at this car, completely mangled up, only being held by the pillars of this bridge in Waverly.
In nearby McEwen, car after car showed up, dropping off supplies at McEwen High School. They're also working with law enforcement and local shelters to find the missing.
We have had several calls this morning, people reporting in to us that they have found some of the people that we had on our list. So praise God, we've been very fortunate. We hope that continues throughout the day.
Tanya Sewell from McEwen is volunteering at the high school. She says it's the least she could do to assist those overwhelmed by tragedy.
You know, McEwen is a small town, but we're big and mighty. We come together when we have to.
Mother Nature's fury may have taken lives too soon, but it didn't break the bonds that these neighbors have for each other.
And Marius, like you heard, so many people know each other here. It's a small town and everybody knows everybody. That's why everyone is doing their part to help out any way they can. Now, McEwen High School has turned into a reunification center. It's closing at 5, but will reopen again at 7 a.m. So if you want to donate, this is the right place to go. Marius.
Tonight, our coverage continues on the devastating flooding in Humphreys County, specifically the town of Waverly. An emergency request for federal aid is on its way to the president as record rainfall ripped apart the community. Right now, a dozen people are still unaccounted for. We know at least 22 people have died, and tonight we're learning about their stories. First, we're hearing the harrowing details of a family who lost their twin babies. Riley and Ryan Rigney were just 7 months old. They were ripped from their father's arms as the flood overtook their Waverly home. News 4's Rebecca Cardenas sat down with the family this afternoon. And Rebecca, She joins us now. What a heartbreaking story.
I mean, there's no other word to describe it, Marius. This family's life was turned completely upside down in a matter of minutes. And Ryan and Riley's parents tell me, and you'll understand why when you watch the story, that it is a miracle any of them survived.
Oh, they was always smiling.
Their parents say Ryan and Riley were happy babies.
And my little Bubba, man, he smiled nonstop, and he could say Bubba. She started crawling on Friday. She crawled for the first time.
At just 7 months old, they leaned on each other.
They was always smiling. They only cried when you separated them.
They was attached to each other like nothing else.
Matthew Rigney and Danielle Hall believe they would have drowned in their sleep if it weren't for the sound of their transformer blowing just before 6 Saturday morning.
Before we all got up and got ready, water was coming in the house.
Danielle left to get help, grabbing onto floating debris and making it not 1,000 feet from their home.
The water just took me, and the only thing I could hang on to was a tree. I'm not joking. The tree was only this big around.
She would be there 6 hours until help arrived. Back at their home, Rigney says it filled with water within minutes, trapping them in the back bedroom.
We tried to get out the window, but the water was coming in so fast, we couldn't even get out of our bedroom window.
He clung to all 4 of his children, the water now just a foot from the ceiling.
Yes, I had her on my neck. I had my 1-year-old right here on my hip, and I had my twins like this, kind of grasping onto my 1-year-old. And when the water hit and the room filled up, and that's when I lost them. I lost all of them.
His 5- and 1-year-old daughters came back up.
She swam up like a big girl. And I grab her, I see Brayla across the room, and she's flapping her arms, and I couldn't find the twins nowhere.
The twins never did.
It was the worst experience I've ever had.
As Rigney struggled to keep his daughters above the still rising water, a neighbor climbed onto their roof just in time.
If he wouldn't have helped us get on the roof, I don't even know where we'd be at right now.
It was hours later that Rigney and Hall would receive the news that the twins had been found.
And that was the best news we got when we found out they was found together. They didn't leave each other's side.
It's how Rigney and Hall know Waverly will get through this, too.
When you go through this, you feel like you're alone and you don't know what to do. But there are so many people, so many angels that are watching over all of us. My baby's made an impact on this world.
And as you saw in those photos, the family's home was completely destroyed as well. They're staying with family temporarily, and they iterated over and over again during this interview, Marius, how grateful they are to the outpouring of support and donations from the community.
Tonight at 6, cleanup continues in devastated Waverly. Debris still scatters streets.
The devastation that we talked about yesterday is not close to what our devastation really is.
Hundreds of homes decimated and families still without their loved ones.
She deserved better. She was just a baby. She was the light of my family.
News 4 is live on the ground as a community works together through tragedy to recover from what the sheriff calls the perfect storm.
This is News 4 Nashville.
Good evening. Cleanup continues tonight in Waverly, Tennessee. The area devastated Saturday by floods. Tonight, the destruction is still very much visible, and it will be for weeks and months to come. Once again, we have multiple crews in Waverly and other areas hit by floods. We begin tonight with News 4 anchor Marius Payton. Marius, you were in Waverly the day after the flooding, so what is it like now, 3 days later?
Tracy and Lauren, I'm going to show you exactly what it's like. Every neighborhood we've been in, we've seen these X's on buildings that have been destroyed. Right here on the bottom, you see an X with an O. What that means is that house has been searched, and the O means that the search has actually been completed. Now, above here, you see an X with a 2. That 2 means that 2 bodies were found, or 2 people were found in this building, and the X across the 2 means those people did not survive.
So we returned to Waverly, this time riding in the sheriff's pickup truck. He wanted us to see on the ground what we've been showing you all week from above. How northeast of Waverly, the CSX Railroad stands on high elevation. Behind it was swollen Trace Creek, flooding these woods with water. Drone 4 captured how 2 sections of the earth under the railroad was forced out and water rushed through. This was important because so many flood victims described not being trapped by gradually rising water, but by a sudden surge. Now, the sheriff confirms it.
There was no gradual rise to this. Up in one of these flood areas, it went from bone dry to waist deep water in somewhere probably less than 15 minutes.
Donations for flood victims are pouring in from all around the country. News 4's Rebecca Cardenas stopped by a church in Waverly this afternoon, overflowing with others' generosity.
Tonight, this community is overwhelmed by the outpouring of donations, everything from hygiene products to basic kitchen supplies, children's toys, and more clothes than they are even able to sort through. More than anything tonight, they just want people from across the country who sent this stuff in to know they're grateful. At the Waverly United Methodist Church, donations are coming in faster than volunteers can keep up.
God spared me.
Quantisha Cohen is picking out baby clothes for her granddaughter.
Yeah, this is pretty.
Due in November. They lost everything in the flood.
Diapers, wipes, clothes, it's gone. So here, it's things that we will need.
An idea that began with helping friends.
I was just thinking, because I knew a lot of my friends had like lost their houses. So I was trying to think of how to get them some clothes.
Reached an entire community.
We had 4 tables out at first, and then it just blew up.
It's very humbling to see what strangers will do for each other. It's just amazing.
Strangers touching strangers.
I've had so many people just cry and just hold on to you, and they want to tell you their story, and you want to hear it.
It's a blessing. Pray for our town. Pray for Waverly. Pray for Humphreys County.
Disaster response teams are out in Humphreys County helping those devastated by the floodwaters. The cleanup will likely take weeks, if not months, to finish. News 4's Cameron Taylor spent some time with a nonprofit on the front lines of this destruction and spoke with a homeowner grateful for their support.
To give you an idea of how powerful those floodwaters were, disaster response teams say this power pole came from more than 20 miles away. A Waverly man who lost everything in his home says divine intervention is the only reason he's alive.
If I'd have went outside or opened the door of my house, I wouldn't be speaking to you today. I believe I'd be dead.
George Gregg never thought he would see this kind of flooding in his lifetime. On Saturday, he saw the water rising and stayed inside.
I could watch the water and I've seen vehicles and everything floating in that direction.
A scary sight to see for the widower who lives by himself. The 78-year-old is grateful to be alive. What's now setting in is that keepsakes and memories are all gone.
It don't even look like my house anymore. They've had to strip so much out of it.
Disaster response teams like Hope Force International are doing what they can to salvage George's home. The Brentwood-based nonprofit has been removing sheetrock, insulation, and flooring so the drying process can happen.
My part's easy. They endured that. They did the hard work. I got the easy job.
Steve LaForge is a volunteer with the nonprofit. He quit his job in corporate America 4 years ago and never looked back.
I get 1,000 times out of this more than I ever got working in corporate America.
For George, he can't thank the volunteers enough for what they've done.
You'd think they was doing it for their own house. I mean, they're doing an absolute great job, and they appear to be enjoying what they're doing.
For now, he's staying with family while he figures out his next steps. While that's still up in the air, what he does know is that he was protected that day.
I feel I was blessed by the Lord, and He's got me here for a reason, and I'm trying to make the best of it.
Like many others, George tells me he did not have flood insurance. He plans to apply for relief funds through FEMA.
With water rising every second, Samuel Devers, his fiance, and 2 little boys didn't know if they'd make it out of their Humphreys County home alive.
We decided that it'd probably be best to go up into our loft, and then I would sit down at the stairs with a flashlight waiting for rescue to come.
When the waters receded, figuring out how he'd pay for the floors, appliances, and his entire home became his next obstacle.
I called my insurance company and filed a claim for a flood, and they told me that I was not covered under a flood and that they would not send anybody out and pretty much not waste their time.
It still affects me.
It's really starting to sink in, I'm sure.
It's starting to seep in, yeah.
Here it still has standing water in it.
Over in Waverly, Johnny Little battles the same stress, cleaning up without the protection of flood insurance.
They came down, they were very polite, they walked through the house, they took pictures, stayed here for about an hour, and all they said is, we'll do what we can. You don't have flood insurance.
It went every room.
Prior to the flood, both men were told they don't need flood insurance because they don't live in a floodplain. News 4 contacted both Little and Devers insurance companies. State Farm told us they can't discuss Mr. Little's situation for privacy reasons, but that they're looking into his claim. While Farm Bureau, Devers insurance company, says generally speaking, property insurance contracts don't cover floods. They went on to say they typically refer customers to the National Flood Insurance Program offered by the federal government. But there's another hurdle. We contacted FEMA to ask about the program and found out the cities of Waverly and McEwen are part of the flood insurance program, but Humphreys County as a whole was not. Devers says his home sits just a quarter of a mile outside of the McEwen city limits, meaning he wouldn't benefit from the national program. Why did the county opt out?
They didn't opt out, they just never opted in.
Do you feel that not opting in back in 2010 was a mistake that the county made?
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, we've had, I believe, 6 nationally declared disasters since 2010. None of those included an individual assistance piece, so individuals weren't qualified for FEMA relief. Now, it would have made a difference in terms of availability of subsidized flood insurance, and for that reason, I think it would have been a good idea.
They've now reconsidered, recently voting to participate in the program, which could mean more help for the most recent flood victims.
FEMA offers a retroactive activation back 6 months, so damages incurred by this flood on August the 21st will be covered.
And while this will help these victims, advocates say a bigger solution is needed.
I think you're seeing as a growing trend across the country, a number of states that are identifying this as a common problem and are really putting forth mandates to develop comprehensive statewide flood plans to hopefully begin to get ahead of this problem before it begins getting worse.
Little and Devers hopes that's the case, not just for them, but for anyone facing the ripple effects of Mother Nature's fury.
I know there's a stipulation. If a plane falls on your house, we'll cover that. If a locomotive runs through your house, we'll cover that. But when it comes to little things like flood, I mean, that happens to all kinds of people.
The people here will tell you, as they have from the beginning, anything helps. And while the deadline for FEMA help comes and goes tonight, the rebuild doesn't stop. It's not hard to miss the sounds of Waverly's Main Street. After all, few people are home. Joseph Murkowski is one of them.
It just got to be built like a brand new house.
Trying to make his house of 30 years a home again after it was gutted by the Waverly flood.
I'm going to stay. You know, why go? I love Waverly.
Tonight, survivors whose lives were upended have one last chance to ask for help from FEMA, which has given almost $6.5 million to nearly 4,000 people.
For some folks, every little bit helps. I mean, you know, if it's there, take it.
While the deadline for applying for that federal help is tonight, people like Murkowski keep a different timeline for returning to a life they once knew, one they wish would speed up.
I can hardly wait. I was hoping in a couple of months or 3 months I'd be back in here, but it ain't gonna happen. It's gonna be a lot longer than that.
If you want to apply for FEMA help, there's 3 ways to do it. You can do it online, through the FEMA app, or over the phone. We have the number listed on our website.
Here at the Humphreys County Courthouse tonight, people came together to honor these 20 victims and their families who lost even more.
Y'all like a candle, honey.
It takes a kind heart like Tanya Newton.
Thank you. You're so sweet.
Who continues to give her love to this Waverly community after people she loved were washed away.
We lost everything. We lost a family member. We had his funeral today.
Well, we live right over ground zero, pretty much.
Michael Phillips and his family lost their home as well, but their lives were saved by friends.
So my neighbors are the reason that this memorial isn't for us.
And while tonight's vigil isn't for them, It's for their 2 family members and friends who died on Saturday. Tonight's memorial didn't bring only Waverly together.
How's that, brother? You like some, sir?
Please, sir. It caught the heart and stomachs of the Crochet brothers out of Southwest Louisiana, who brought this wholesome pot of jambalaya.
We understand what they're going through. You know, not quite with the tragedy of death that y'all had here, but we're in hurricane country down there.
And while these people here have seen Waverly at its worst,
you drive down these roads, you see the houses in the middle of streets, in the middle of places where they shouldn't be.
every person in this crowd has their own story of hope, their own story of resilience.
This week I've wondered, what if, in a couple of situations, what if our schools had been in session up the street here? Can you imagine what that event would have been like?
But after everything this community has lost, the people of Waverly aren't going anywhere.
We just love it here. My kids grew up here, played sports here, graduated.
They'll keep showering Waverly in their own flood of love. And the recovery process here in Humphreys County isn't over yet. There's still months of recovery and work ahead for this entire community to rebuild. Reporting in Waverly, I'm Marissa Sulek, News 4 Nashville.
We have all this money sitting there, and how do they get it? How do they get help?
Tonight, News 4 Investigates is asking tough questions to nonprofits following the deadly flooding in Waverly 3 months ago.
Get this, more than $6 million have been raised so far, but many flood victims want to know why they're not receiving more money. And you might be surprised to find out where some of the money went and why others are still holding on to it.
Here's consumer investigative reporter Lindsay Bramson with what she found out.
Megan Swaw can barely talk about it.
It's very hard. I'm sorry.
While her home near Waverly was untouched by the deadly flood, she can't help but think, what happened to all that donated could really use right now?
It makes me very mad because you have all these families who, like I said, are at a stopping point or have lost everything and they have nothing to start with.
A concern repeated on social media over and over again.
There's so many people in need that need stuff now.
During our 3-month-long investigation, News 4 Investigates found out some organizations are still holding on to money, a lot of it. One of those is the Community Foundation. Since August, the nonprofit has raised nearly $3 million. But so far, flood victims have only seen 11% of that.
People are frustrated.
I know.
Who live there. Do you understand?
Oh, 100%.
Why they are?
Yes, 100%.
Executive Director Amy Fair says the foundation's entire purpose is long-term recovery, doling out money to nonprofits and charities to help people rebuild their lives.
If we gave everything all at once, there's still going to be a need later on. I think if they have money, they need to distribute to the people that really need it.
And that's exactly what the United Way says it's doing.
100% of money coming in is going out for the flood survivors and helping them recover.
The United Way of Humphreys County received right over $1 million in donations, all of which goes to victims, providing the average family $1,800 each.
The basic insurance only covers $20,000.
Take people like Annetta Sykes. This is her house after the flood. Sykes received $1,250 from the United Way, but only $500 from the Red Cross.
How fast did you go through that $500?
Oh, well, yeah, it didn't last long.
And that's just a drop in the bucket compared to the $1.6 million in donations the Red Cross received.
Do you see how somebody out there hears that and says, I don't understand why we're not getting more money?
Yeah, I can understand why they would feel that way because they have a need.
The organization says they've spent all of that and more for a total of $1.9 million to provide housing, meals, and gas. It also pays salaries for the staff. We asked for the breakdown, and check this out. Only about half the money raised went to things like hotel rooms, medical needs, and financial assistance.
I think it's wrong. I think it's very wrong. We have so many flat areas now where homes are gone, and they need it now. Quit holding on to it.
Here's the thing. At the end of the day, you want to do your research before you donate to an organization. Ask questions and just make sure you know exactly how much of your money is going directly to the victims. We know some of these groups still have money. And as always, you can count on us to keep asking those tough questions until it's all in the hands of those who need it most.
It's not natural. It's not the way. This wasn't supposed to happen.
More than 3 months have passed since Tiffany Bryant lost her daughter, Lily Ann.
It will never be the same. It would never be, it won't never be the same again.
Lily Ann was one of more than 20 lives lost in the Waverly flood. She's the youngest of Tiffany and Shane Bryant's 4 daughters.
It's not the holidays. It's not Christmas. It's not without her.
Tiffany says she misses Lily Ann's smile and sense of humor. But there is something here in Waverly that helps Tiffany feel closer to her. How often do you pass this mural?
Every day. Every day. More than once a day. Every day.
Lily Ann's mural shines bright in the Walls Art Park in Waverly. It was done by Nashville-based artist Terry Misch.
Her eyes. That's my favorite. Like, looking in her eyes here is like looking in her eyes, and the beautiful green eyes, shiny.
This mural is now one of 6 by different artists in the park dedicated to Waverly flood victims. Others depicted include 7-month-old twins, Ryan and Riley, who were swept from their father's arms, and Mary Luton, who helped many others get to safety before losing her own life.
The community loves the park in general, just because there's a place for them to come and walk around and see art. And as the memorials were coming out, we'd get more and more people would come to see them. And a lot of people have brought flowers and left flowers at the base, or teddy bears for the twins. We've had people set up solar lights so the memorials can be seen at night.
Tiffany always keeps her daughter close to her heart.
It's her print with her birthstone, and on the other side it says Mom's Lilybug, and it holds ashes as well.
While the park brings her comfort,
there's times that we've just parked right in front, and we've spent hours just sitting there.
Tiffany still misses Lily Ann.
I would do and give everything if I could.
Here at the Waverly Cash Saver, the doors reopened at noon today. And as you can see from behind me, it's been busy ever since. This line outside Waverly's grocery store shows you.
There is no place like Cash Saver, I kid you not, anywhere.
And Debbie Shue can tell you it's been missed.
We just don't like Walmart, I'm sorry.
After 4 long months, these customers,
some real milk, not that fake great value stuff,
want their food.
See it, we love our meats. They have the best.
It's gonna be crazy, it's gonna be exciting, it's gonna be fun.
Cash Saver co-owner John Curtis helped rebuild this place. One of many flooded this summer.
I mean, my best friend here, she lost everything in that flood. And she's been with me. And this is awesome for us right here at Christmas that our store is back open.
And back open.
Come on in.
It is.
To the meat. Right here. Right here. They get it in fresh every day.
This grand reopening isn't only about food.
I am so excited for y'all.
Thank you.
For Curtis, it's about relationships.
Today, I believe, is 115 days since the flood.
This community has seen a lot.
There are hundreds of homes that were lost in this community, hundreds of families that are displaced in this community. We've had 20 community members that have lost their lives, families that have lost loved ones, and that's really what it's about.
In a year where so much went wrong, Waverly Cash Saver is trying to make it right.
I want to see everybody. I came in the front door and I said, hi, everybody.
And for everybody in this store,
I just literally wanted my milk. And it's the real milk. See, it says Prairie Farms on it.
Walmart isn't the only option no more. Now, I've checked in with John throughout the months to see when they plan on opening. He says his goal was to open before Christmas, and with a week and a half away, he did exactly that. Reporting in Waverly, Marissa Sulek, News 4 Nashville.